The San Diego Padres have scuffled all season, but you've known that talent has been there. And the talent on that team certainly showed itself in this series as they took 2 out of 3 from the Orioles. I'll recap the 3-game set in San Diego coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Orioles fans, today is Thursday, August 17th, 2023, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb, and coming up on today's episode, we are going to recap the 3-game series this week between the Orioles and the Padres in San Diego, in which the O's dropped 2 out of 3, winning game 1 and losing the next 2 to lose the series. I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from Monday's 4-1 win for the O's. Started off the series hot. Grayson Rodriguez was awesome. But then talk about a bit of the positive takeaways and the negative takeaways from the losses in the final 2 games of this set. And that's all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast, which is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started today. So we'll jump in here really to start things off with what was the one Orioles win of this series. And if you're just joining us here for the first time this week today, I mentioned it on the last couple of episodes, but because of the time difference, the West Coast games, the late nights, my other responsibilities, wasn't able to recap either the first 2 games on Tuesday or Wednesday's episode, answer some mailbag questions on those pods, so make sure to go back and check those out. But we're getting a full series recap here today as the O's dropped 2 out of 3 to the San Diego Padres. They won the opener 4-1 on Monday night, but that was where really the positivity stopped for this team, losing 10-3 in game 2 on Tuesday. And they dropped the rubber match, losing 5-2 on Wednesday night to the Padres. And again, the O's did not get swept. Makes it 78 series in a row in which they have not been swept, but they did lose the last 2 games and lose the series. Orioles now 74-47 on the season. On the flip side, the Rays took 2 out of 3, won the series in San Francisco against the Giants. So the Orioles lead now sits at 2 games. It'll sit at 2 games heading into Friday because both the O's and the Rays have an off day here on Thursday. But we're going to start with Monday's win, the 5 things you need to know from the Orioles' 4-1 victory over the Padres on Monday night. The first thing you need to know is Grayson Rodriguez was awesome in this one. You could make a strong argument that Monday night in San Diego was Rodriguez's best start in the major leagues. It was the longest start of his careers. He goes 7 innings, allowing just 1 run on 3 hits, striking out 6, walking just 1. He did allow a home run, something he had not done in his last 5 starts, but that home run, a solo shot by Garrett Cooper in the 6th inning to dead center field on, I believe, the first pitch of the inning, was the only run that he allowed. 95 pitches, just 6 hard hit balls against him, lowered his ERA to 5.44 on the season after that kind of disastrous stretch he went on before he was sent down to AAA. But he's been great since returning, has just kind of been dynamite at this point for this Orioles rotation and has been just what they needed. And he really did pitch like the true young ace top prospect that he was supposed to be. That is what he looked like on Monday night. That is by far the closest we've seen him look like that. And really when you put together, what he has done since coming back from AAA Norfolk and how he's been such a different pitcher, had so much more confidence in the off speeds, has had better fastball command, has been able to get more strikeouts, has been able to pitch deeper into games, been able to keep the pitch counts down a little further as well. I mean, you're looking at these starts from him returning 5 innings, 4 runs against the Dodgers, and then 5 2/3, 2 runs against the Rays, 6 1/3 scoreless against the Yankees, 5 2/3, 3 runs against the Blue Jays, 6 innings, 2 runs against the Astros, and then 7 innings, 1 run against the Padres. And in 3 starts in August so far, he's got a 2.89 ERA. He's just kind of become a different pitcher since being recalled. And what I really liked from what I saw Monday is, first of all, just the 1 walk. That was huge for Grayson Rodriguez. He got 15 whiffs on the day, but it was the ability to really use the off speeds. This felt like the biggest mix of pitches that he's thrown since he's been back. 38 of his 95 pitches were four-seam fastballs, and that pitch was good. He got 7 whiffs on it. The velo was up. He was kind of averaging, 99 was his average. He touched 101 multiple times on Monday night. That pitch was good. But he also threw 32 sliders and 20 changeups to go with it, and was very reliant on those off-speed pitches as well. He was really a 3-pitch guy. He tossed in 5 curveballs just to keep hitters off balance, and 3 of them were for called strikes. The curveball basically became the get-me-over pitch for Rodriguez at times on Monday. But otherwise, fastball velo was up. You could tell he was amped up. He was firing strikes. He was getting ahead of hitters. He had that 4th inning, which is the best inning I've seen him throw. He's facing the middle of the order: Tatis, Soto, Machado. Strikes out Tatis, strikes out Soto, gets Machado to pop out in a 1-2-3 inning. The pitch just sequence that he threw to those 3 hitters, 3 of the best hitters in all of baseball, 3 MVP type players, was unbelievable to watch from Grayson on Monday night. Second thing you need to know from the Orioles' 4-1 win on Monday is that Ryan O'Hearn got things back on track. If you did listen to Tuesday's episode, I kind of talked about the Orioles' first base DH situation, talked about how Ryan O'Hearn had been scuffling a little bit. He had not been good in the month of August. Well, he turned that around in this series, and specifically in Game 1. It was O'Hearn who got the scoring started for the Orioles off of Padres starter Yu Darvish, who wasn't bad in this one, but did allow 4 runs on 8 hits over 7 innings against the O's. And O'Hearn got him with a solo home run in the top of the second to put the Orioles up 1-0. Didn't exactly hammer the ball, 97 off the bat. It traveled just 343 feet down the right field line. But because of that wall down the right field line at Petco Park that kind of juts out further into the field, he landed it like right into the 3rd row right there to give the Orioles the lead. And he had another hit later in the game, O'Hearn finishing with a 2-for-3 with a home run, single, and a walk as well with a couple of hard hit balls. Just continues to be a big part of this Orioles order, and nice to see him just hitting the ball hard again and producing again. Third thing that you need to know from Monday's game is that Gunnar Henderson was the guy who kind of delivered the knockout blow, or at least what was at the time for the O's. Henderson came up with the bases full of Orioles in the 5th inning with 1 out, and he delivered. Got a first pitch curveball from Yu Darvish. It was a pretty good pitch. It was in the strike zone, but it was down and away. Henderson just stayed on it, stayed back, because Darvish throws that big 70-mile-per-hour looping curveball that is honestly sometimes his most effective pitch, and Henderson stayed on it, just kind of looped it the other way into the corner, clears the bases, gives the Orioles a 4-0 lead. Was a huge swing for Gunnar, who went 2-for-4 with a single and a double in that game on Monday night, hitting in the 2-hole. Just great to see different guys step up in the lineup, and it was Gunnar Henderson on Monday night. Fourth thing you need to know from Monday's game is that Aaron Hicks was, let's say briefly, back in the lineup. As we talked about earlier in the week, Hicks was activated off the injured list on Monday with Colton Cowser being sent down to AAA. And Hicks got the start in left field, hitting 8th for the Orioles, and it was a nice return to the lineup. Goes 2-for-3 with a couple of singles, a hard hit ball, and a run scored. But then in the 8th inning, we saw Austin Hayes, who was initially getting the day off, replace him defensively in left field. Now, initially I thought, okay, maybe just because Hicks is coming back from the injury, they don't want him to play all 9 innings. Hayes is a better left fielder out there, so you put him out there for defense with a 3-run lead in the 8th. But it did come out then on Tuesday that Hicks was dealing with a little bit of back soreness. That's why he came out of the game. They didn't say specifically, but it seemed like he was most likely not available Tuesday. However, Brandon Hyde did say that Hicks was available off the bench Wednesday if needed, but he was not in the lineup and did not play in Wednesday's loss either. It'll be good that the O's have the off day today on Thursday, but interesting to see if Hicks will be back in the lineup this weekend against the Oakland A's. And the 5th and final thing you need to know from the Orioles' 4-1 win on Monday is that Felix Bautista was a little shaky again, but he did lock down the save. Came out there and got a pop-up to open up the inning and was probably feeling good to start the 9th after he had had the 2 rough outings last week, but then pulled it back together and was amazing in Seattle on Saturday night. He gets Ha-Sung Kim to pop out. He's feeling good. Then he walks Fernando Tatis, threw a 3-2 slider to Tatis with a 3-run lead and nobody on base. I was kind of confused by that one and walked him. Then him versus Juan Soto was just an epic battle, and Bautista missed up and in with a 3-2 fastball. So it was back-to-back walks with our old friend Manny Machado coming up to the plate representing the tying run. And Machado hit a ball hard on a splitter, but hit it right into the ground, hit it right to third base. Orioles turned a 5-4-3 double play to end the game and secure the 4-1 victory. Yes, it is a little concerning that Bautista walked back-to-back batters in that game with a 3-run lead to allow the tying run to come to the plate, but stuff is still so good that he was able to get out of it. It was kind of similar to how he looked in April, if you remember back then. Multiple times in April, he would just walk the bases loaded and then strike guys out and still get out of it because the stuff was so good. That's a little bit what he's looked like over the last week or so, but still totally trust him as the best closer in baseball right now. And the Orioles got the 4-1 win to open the series with a victory. However, that would be the only victory of the series for the O's, as they ended up dropping games 2 and 3 of this series. But coming up next, we'll try to find the positives in the 2 losses to the Padres here. Maybe talk about Adley Rutschman, a little bit of Jacob Webb as well. Have the Orioles found their next high leverage reliever off the waiver wire from the Los Angeles Angels? We'll talk about that coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by Nutrafol. You don't have to choose between better hair growth and your health. Nutrafol provides a whole body health approach for men that promotes healthier hair. No drugs, no compromises, just better hair. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement, clinically shown to improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements use physician-formulated, natural, science-backed ingredients. Their drug-free, patented technology provides consistent, reliable results without compromising your sexual health either. So, if you want to get your hands on some Nutrafol or just learn more about the product, go to Nutrafol.com/men, and you can take their hair health wellness quiz that will identify causes of your thinning hair. So take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and enter the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men. That's spelled Nutrafol.com/men and enter promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Nutrafol.com/men. Promo code LOCKEDONMLB. So the Orioles were able to take game 1 from the Padres 4-1 on Monday night, but as I mentioned, that was it for them, falling 10-3 on Tuesday and then 5-2 on Wednesday to drop the series. But we're going to try to find a couple of the positives from what was still a series loss on the road for the Orioles. Now listen, this Padres team, I get it, they are 58-63 after taking 2 out of 3. They're still on the fringes, I would say, of the NL wildcard race, and they're not a great team, at least what their record says. But this team, I mean, Pythagorean record-wise and run differential-wise is right around what the Orioles are at this point. They've gotten so unlucky, so many one-run losses. They haven't won an extra innings game so far this year. It's been a weird year. I mean, the top of their lineup, you're looking at Kim, Tatis, Soto, Machado, Bogarts. I mean, that's the best top 5 maybe in baseball, besides, I guess, the Atlanta Braves. They've got a top 5 starting rotation. The Orioles saw that this week from what they had to face with Darvish, Waka, and Blake Snell. I mean, their rotation's ridiculous. Yeah, their bullpen definitely leaves something to desired. You know, before you get to Josh Hader, there's a lot of question marks in that Padres bullpen. But they should be much better than their record is. However, still a series the O's could have won, but still some positives to take away. And wanted to get kind of three positive takeaways from the 2 losses and really the losing series as a whole. The first one is Adley Rutschman broke out of a little mini slump, which was really nice to see. Now, he did wait until Wednesday night to do it, but he did it, and that's what important. He was 1 for 21 heading into Wednesday's game, but broke out of it early. Opened the game with a single off Blake Snell, and later came around to score on a Santander sac fly that gave the Orioles the lead. They scored first, went up 1-0 in the first inning. Actually, that was just their 12th loss of the season on Wednesday when scoring first. The Orioles now 44-12 when scoring the first run of a game this year. Not often that they score first and lose. That is what happened on Wednesday. Then Rutschman doubled in his next plate appearance in the game. Ended up going 2 for 4 with the double and the single. Now at 267 average, a 787 OPS. It was just nice to see him. He'll go through these mini slumps here and there. Nice to see him break out of it. That generally means that the positive up arrow is about to come for Adley Rutschman. Second positive takeaway from the lost series, Jacob Webb. The Orioles may have found a guy here in Jacob Webb. 5 innings now with the Orioles in 5 outings since they claimed him off waivers from the Angels. 5 scoreless innings, 1 hit, 6 strikeouts, just 1 walk in his 5 appearances with the O's. And we talked about him last week when the O's brought him in, what they could tweak, what they could change to make him the pitcher he was a couple of years ago with the Braves when he was one of their best relievers. I just don't know what the Angels were thinking. This is a struggling team with a bad bullpen in Anaheim. They need all the relievers they can get. They got a veteran guy in Webb who, was giving up some runs, but wasn't having an awful season. And they just cut him loose. And Webb got the 8th inning on Monday night with the Orioles up 4-1. And he did give up a hit, but put up a 0 in the 8th on 11 pitches. And then he also pitched the 8th Wednesday, a little different circumstance. Bottom of the 8th, Orioles already trailing 5-2, but Webb gets a 1-2-3 inning on another just 11 pitches. And again, hasn't given up a run, just 1 hit allowed in an Oriole uniform. I'm not ready to say all right, pencil in Webb as the 8th inning guy, the setup man before Bautista, because Fujinami and Cano and Baumann and others have not really taken full grasp of that role lately. But he's certainly a candidate for that role right now. And that is huge for an Orioles bullpen that is still searching for answers. They're still having guys have some struggles right now. And I think maybe one more positive kind of from this series is, they lost 2 out of 3, but they were able to kind of rest Yennier Cano. They haven't been able to do that much at all lately. And Cano did not pitch in any of the 3 games. He'll get another off day for the full off day today. He'll be very rested whenever the O's need him for the first time in Oakland. So that's a nice thing. And Webb help you out with that, with a guy being able to get some outs in a key spot in the 8th inning of a game. And the third positive takeaway from the losses in this series is Ryan Mountcastle and James McCann. Both just continued to hit. Mountcastle now, he only had a 3 for 12, not an amazing series, but had 1 hit in every game, had a solo homer off Blake Snell in the Wednesday game, had a couple of RBIs, now hitting .415 in the month of August. He's just been ridiculous. Still hitting right around 400 since he returned from vertigo. It's been night and day what we've seen from Ryan Mountcastle. And then James McCann. McCann only played on Wednesday, got the start behind the dish in that game, and he's hitting. James McCann is hitting 1 for 3 with a single, couple of hard hit balls on Wednesday night, but 7-game hit streak now for McCann. He is now 10 for 20 in the month of August, and he's now got hits in 12 of his last 13 starts when he's been behind the plate for the Orioles. He is becoming a productive backup catcher. We continue to talk about it. James McCann keeping things going. We can get to, all the positive takeaways that you want. A couple of other guys had some key hits and some nice series, but the Orioles did lose the series. And coming up next, kind of going to finish off the pod with the 3 really tough things to look at. The 3 big takeaways from this series that were negative for the O's and really pointed to why, the O's did lose this series in San Diego. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by Sleeper. Do you think that maybe this weekend, we'll take Ryan O'Hearn. He's starting to swing it better. Or Adley Rutschman can hit a homer in Oakland. Well, I sure do. And on Sleeper, you can swing for the fences with up to 100 times payouts. All you have to do is choose 2 or more players that you like and select more or less on their stat categories like homers, strikeouts, hits, and more. Get your picks right, you could win big. You go on Sleeper, it's really my favorite way now to play daily fantasy sports. They got dynamic payouts as well. There's more stat categories to place contests on. You can get higher payouts than other apps with less picks, so it makes it even easier. So use the promo code LOCKEDON and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. So the Orioles dropped the series, losing 2 out of 3 to the Padres, finishing things up with a 5-2 loss on Wednesday night. Wanted to get to kind of the 3 bad things from this series. Just went to the 3 good things despite losing the series. Let's talk the 3 bad things. And bad thing number 1 is kind of the glaring thing that happened in this series. That is what happened to Jack Flaherty in game 2 of the series on Tuesday night. Flaherty goes out there and not only has by far the worst of his 3 starts as an Oriole, but you can make a really strong argument, and I'm going to make it right now, that what Flaherty did Tuesday night was the worst start by any Orioles pitcher so far this year. Flaherty goes 3 innings, allowing 7 runs on 4 hits with 3 strikeouts, 4 walks, and a homer allowed. Took him 84 pitches to throw 3 innings. And honestly, it was kind of nice that Flaherty threw the 3rd inning because it would have been pretty easy for Brandon Hyde to take him out after 2 disastrous innings. He put him back out there, and Flaherty actually threw a 1-2-3 third, put up a 0 before the Orioles turned to Nick Vespi out of the bullpen. But he was just bad. I mean, you could tell from that first inning. Now, he did get 2 outs with just 1 guy on and had a chance to get out of the first, putting up a 0. Just couldn't do it and just let that inning just completely snowball on him, where he walks in a run and then he allows the grand slam to Gary Sanchez, and it's a 5-run first. It's a 5-0 San Diego lead, and the place is buzzing out there. And Flaherty just didn't have it, and that's fine. I mean, he's had some blow-up starts this year with the Cardinals. It was a good start, a solid start, and now a bad start. His first 3 times with the Orioles since being acquired at the trade deadline, and he got 7 whiffs on 34 swings. It's not great. He just didn't have the swing and miss stuff. It seemed like the Padres were picking up everything he was throwing out of the hand, whether it was fastball, slider, knuckle curve, cutter, whatever. They were just seeing him so well on Tuesday night. You could see even when he threw a breaking ball that was a good slider that would start at the knees, break down and away from a right-hander, guys would still be on it enough to follow it, and just foul it off. I don't know if it was something in the mechanics. I don't know if it was something in the delivery. He just wasn't tunneling well. Whatever it was, the Padres were on him and on him early. He finished that first inning and then came back out, gave up 2 more in the second. It was just not good from Jack Flaherty. Now, I don't see it as some kind of big indictment of him being bad for the Orioles or something for the rest of the season, but it is something to monitor, right? Because it's been a good start, that first start in Toronto, an okay start where he was bad early and then recovered against the Astros, and then really just a bad start against the Padres. Still think he helps the rotation. We shall see what he does his next time out there. Most likely he'll get a chance to face the Blue Jays again at Camden Yards next week for his next start. It'll be interesting to see. But yeah, it was just didn't have the command. Mechanics were off, just not right, Jack Flaherty on Tuesday night. Other tough thing was the Orioles' offense in this series. I mean, granted, they faced 3 great starting pitchers. Yu Darvish, they hit him a little bit, but generally he was good. Michael Wacha returned off the injured list. He's been great this year, tossed 5 scoreless. He's got a 2.68 ERA. And then you get Blake Snell, he could really win the NL Cy Young this year. He goes 6 innings, 2 runs, lowers his ERA to 2.65. The Padres' rotation has not been their issue this year. The rotation's been great, and they show that. But the bullpen has been iffy, and that is where the Orioles kind of concern me a bit, because the Padres bullpen went out there and allowed only 3 runs in 3 games in this series from that pen. And it was a pen that, was asked to throw 9 innings over 3 games, which isn't terrible, but the O's only getting the 3 runs off of them was a little concerning. And 2 of those runs, it was a 10-1 game in the 9th inning Tuesday. They scored 2 runs off of Luis Garcia, who's coming back from injury and trying to figure things out again. Otherwise, the O's really did nothing against that Padres pen. They had a couple of chances. The offense wasn't terrible. You get the 4 runs Monday on 9 hits. That's not bad. The 3 runs on 11 hits Tuesday, you feel like you should score more on 11 hits than just the 2 runs on 5 hits on Wednesday. It wasn't all there. And it's not like anybody had a horrendous offensive series. I guess the only guy who maybe had a bad series would be Anthony Santander. That's the closest thing to a bad series here. He had a 1 for 10. He had a single on Tuesday. That was his only hit. I guess that would be really the only thing there. And Santander's been struggling a little bit lately at the plate as well. But everybody else contributed in one way or another, at least the guys who, played more than 1 game in this series. You look at the box score for Tuesday, and it's very odd. The Orioles get blown out. They lose 10-3. but you got a 2-hit game from O'Hearn and from Mullins and from Hayes and Frazier and Arias and Mountcastle and Santander and Henderson. 8 of your 9 starters had a hit in this game. Now you only drew 1 walk, and that might be an issue, but I feel like 11 hits could get you more than 3 runs. It just didn't. They didn't come through in the big spots in that game on Tuesday, and that was kind of the deal. And the offense has been scuffling a little bit lately. Like, it hasn't been great. You think about that Mariners series, right? They win the series, but you score 2 Friday night, you score 1 run in 10 innings on Saturday and somehow win the game, and then you barely scratch through with the 5 runs in extra innings on Sunday to win that one. The offense hasn't exactly been firing on all cylinders at this point. They need a little bit of a boost. Somebody's got to really get hot and maybe kind of carry this offense. Now, it should help that they're playing the Oakland A's this weekend, but yeah, that was something a little rough. And then, there was a couple more things like Shintaro Fujinami. He had a scoreless outing Tuesday in a no pressure situation whatsoever. Then he came in, gave up 2 earned runs in 2/3, big 2 insurance runs in the 7th for the Padres. On Wednesday night, that wasn't great. The Orioles allowed Fernando Tatis to grab a straight steal of home on Wednesday night against Cionel Perez. That wasn't a great look either. But I did just want to point out the fact that they use James McCann as a pitcher. And that's usually a signal that things aren't going your way. Now, McCann, credit to him, comes in there, 10-1 game, bottom of the 8th Tuesday, gives up a couple of hits, but throws 14 pitches and puts up a 0. And you know what? If your position player pitcher can get out of there putting up a 0, that is a win. Now, StatCast categorized all 14 of his pitches as ephyses, which, I'd call it that. His minimum pitch velocity was 39.1 miles per hour. His maximum was 53.1 miles per hour. McCann was completely lobbing it in there. And you know what? He put up a 0 and got the game to the 9th inning, and he did his job. But yeah, not great to have the blowout loss and then just have the offense not really be there Wednesday. But as I said, still didn't get swept. You get a chance to reset. You're still in first place. You get a nice off day today. And the best part about it is probably you got the A's coming up this weekend. What better team to get right against than the team that more than maybe anyone in baseball history is truly trying to lose? And I want you to be able to stick around and tune in for all of the coverage coming up the rest of this week, into next week, throughout this pennant race for the Orioles. We are available anywhere you get your podcasts. Also, make sure to subscribe to the Locked On Orioles YouTube channel. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed already. We've talked about it this week, but if you missed it, because I crossed 4,000 subscribers on YouTube a couple of weeks ago, we're doing a giveaway here on the pod. And the giveaway is the Orioles 2023 soccer jersey. There it is. Orioles soccer jersey. Got the Birdland FC 23 on the back. Got the Pepsi logo with the O's logo on the front with the crest. It is the size medium giveaway. 2 things you got to do to enter to win. Number 1, subscribe to Locked On Orioles on YouTube. Number 2, leave in the comment section of this video or any of the YouTube videos from this week here on the channel. Tell me your favorite Orioles win of the season and why. The entries will close Friday at midnight. I will pick a winner this weekend, and the winner of the Orioles soccer jersey will be announced on Monday's episode. But we will be back tomorrow. Now, the Orioles are off today. No game today. So it'll be a fun pod tomorrow. We'll certainly preview the weekend series coming up in Oakland against the worst team in baseball, the Athletics, but also kind of do, a little reset on the Orioles season so far, maybe answer some mailbag questions, look back, and look forward to what the O's have to do down the stretch to end up winning this AL East. But that's all coming up on tomorrow's episode. Until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.